Greetings! Welcome to the Mega Dive. How can I help you?
Question: how difficult is it to make omurice?
The beauty about the dish is that anyone can do it regardless of skill level. It's a pretty basic dish. If anything, it's probably one of the dishes that everyone tries whenever they think they want to make Japanese cuisine.
Got any info or recipes for omurice?
It's eggs, ketchup, and rice. Very simple.
Are you saying you can't make this?
Yeah. I'd like to see this guy, whoever it is that can't make this dish.
Think you're better than me!
Vegeta's world famous gourmet rice. Vegeta's world famous gourmet rice.
Well, in the interest of self-preservation, let's see what we have here. We have the omurice, one of the most popular dishes you're gonna find in most animes or in most video games, with this being a very typical style of meal. Very basic, very simple to do, which, granted, Japanese food is not really that complicated to do. Now, this is less of a jab towards Japanese food, and it's more that anyone can cook this, you just need to give it a shot. Contrary to popular belief, all you really need are like 5 basic ingredients and you basically have the grand majority of dishes ready to go. Now for this one we are going to be doing a fried rice base. This is less for being fancy and more considering the client and in the interest of making sure my dome stays round on any general day. I might be tempted to simply just grab some leftover fried rice, dump it into the pan, pour on some ketchup or a special sauce which we are going to make, and just make an omurice with that. Now, in the interest of being at least fair, we are going to be making some fried rice. We're going to be using parboiled rice. Why parboiled? This is the type of rice that's already been partially boiled and dehydrated, which means this rice is going to be cooked in half the time. It is going to be like leftover or day-old rice, which is separated, not very sticky, and each grain is loose, which is fantastic for our use. Now we're going to put this to boil in a pot with water and with salt. How much water? That really depends on your cooking method. I usually use 2 cups of water for 1 cup of rice. If you are going to be using the classic method of putting the rice and water in at the same time, then just fill up the pot until the water touches the first knuckle. Now while that's boiling, we are going to be chopping up our vegetables. Now this is fried rice, or a heavily modified version of fried rice. And yes, if anyone starts mentioning it, no, this is not egg fried rice or anything like that. This is just a simplified version of fried rice, which is going to be drenched in a sauce, put underneath an omelet over raw. Now for this one, we're going to be using some peppers, we're going to be using some onions, and we are going to be putting in some carrots. Now to this, we're also going to be adding a little bit of garlic, and if you have some ginger, I would suggest adding some, just to give it a little bit of freshness. We're going to chop this up. Doesn't need to be fine, but it should be chopped up to pretty much bite-sized pieces, or something that you can pick up with a spoon or a fork, depending on how you're going to be eating this. We're going to chop it up, and we're going to put this aside. While we are doing this, we are going to be checking our rice, because the rice needs to be just cooked. You can't really overcook this or let it boil to let it get soft, because again, we're using parboiled rice. This is never gonna get soft, and by the time it gets soft, you might as well add some chives, maybe some sesame oil, and just have it as a rice porridge. Now, as soon as we have our vegetables, we are going to be beating a couple of eggs. Now, this really depends on just how hungry you are. We can add 2 eggs, or we can add 3 eggs. The most important thing is make sure that they are properly whipped. Now, properly whipped just means make sure that everything is nicely combined. Add some milk, though in my application we're going to be using evaporated milk. I want to remove a little bit of water from this, because this is going to have a very heavy sauce, and the drier we get this, the better in this application.
Next, we're going to quickly fry up an egg, because fried rice needs eggs. We're going to cook this up quickly, And not thoroughly. It's gonna finish cooking up when we add the rice and everything else into it.
Next, we are going to finish cooking our rice. And what we're going to be doing is grabbing a nice hot skillet and we are going to heat it up. Make sure we use some stir-fry oil. If you do not have stir-fry oil, which is basically just a peanut oil or a soy oil that has some ginger and a little bit of garlic and onions infused into the oil, it gives it a very nice sweet flavor. We're going to be tossing in our vegetables, in which we are going to make sure they get cooked and get nice and tender. Cook it at a medium heat. Do not put it in high because you're going to brown this and it's going to release a very bitter flavor to this. We want this to sweat, which means do not put this above a medium heat. Now, as we are cooking this, we can add practically anything. The good thing about this dish is that if you have something in the fridge that's about to go bad, toss it in. Most likely it will work. Now, we're going to add a little bit of ham, but I've made this before with chicken, pulled pork, with barbecue pork, steak. It's really versatile. You can use whatever you have. Hell, you can grill some fish and drop it into this too if you like that flavor. We're going to be tossing in our rice. Now for this one, normally I would use, for a fried rice, I would just use soy sauce. However, for this one, we're going to be using equal parts of soy sauce and Worcestershire. Now, why Worcestershire? Because it is a very pungent sauce. It has a nice fishiness to it. You may be asking, why not use fish sauce? Leave me alone, it's what I got. And also, it's a very popular condiment, so most likely you have this in the cupboard somewhere. And we're going to be adding something a little more specialized. We are going to add mirin to this. Mirin is basically a reduced sake with a little sugar. And this is one of those 5 ingredients that I mentioned earlier, that as long as you have it in your kitchen, you can make whatever Japanese food you want. And we are going to add a little bit of sesame oil, just to give it a little bit of woodiness and just to give it that extra touch. After we finish sauteing our vegetables, after we stir fry everything and make sure everything's properly mixed, we are going to add a sauce to this. Traditionally, we would just be using ketchup. However, we're going to spice this up a little bit. We are going to be using 1 part ketchup, 2 parts ketchup, 1 part Worcestershire, and a teaspoon of Mirin sauce. We are going to whisk it, and this one, since we're going to be using it on the omurice, we don't have to cook it much. Just drop some of it into the rice, and we're gonna stir it up. Make sure you reduce the heat, because when you add the sauce, we do not want this to caramelize, because we're using some ketchup and some mirin. Both of those contain sugars. After that, we're going to reduce the heat, take out the fried rice, and place it into the plate that we want to use. The good thing about this recipe is that you can make a very large batch, keep it in the fridge, and whenever you want some omurice, or if you want to use this for another application, it's ready to go. Next, we are going to be heating up a non-stick skillet, and we are going to pour in our egg mixture. Now, whenever you're making an omelet, make sure that you do not break this, because while it may help it to cook, we are trying to make an omelet. We're not trying to make scrambled eggs. And we are not going to flip this because we need one side of this to be still raw. Now, if you are skilled or if you have the ability to, you can just roll this up into an oval and just put this on top of the fried rice, slice it open, and you basically have the omurice you're probably going to see on social media. For this one, let's not make this too simple. Let's remember who we're making this for. And we're just gonna slap it on top of the fried rice. Make sure the raw side is against the rice, because that egg yolk is gonna fuse with the rice. It's gonna give it a nice texture, and it's gonna be very, very easy to spoon. After that, we are going to place this on the side, and we are going to add more of the sauce. Now, we're not gonna do any design. We just want this to be served on top. And voila! Here we have omurice, a staple Japanese dish for anyone wanting to start learning how to make Japanese food, or for any culinary weebs out there. Something quick, easy to make, and a good introduction to basically the world of cooking. You can decorate this however you want. We can give it a star made out of the cooked carrots. We can also draw on it. You can also slice this up, or even instead of just putting it on a bowl, You can simply just fill the egg up with the fried rice, tie it up into a ball, and you can have it like a Frankenstein onigiri. It all really depends on what you like. And with that, we have succeeded, and hopefully my processors will live another day. So, let's get this to the customer. Order up!
You insolent. Insolence will not be tolerated!